Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, young love can send you down some pretty crazy rabbit holes, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with, once again, as always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about not only their current project, but influences, state of the industry, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things over here, and I mean, I think that you do because you're listening to us right now, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the podcast. You can find us basically wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, it's all good. And you can find every single one of our episodes archived over at our YouTube channel. Also, we'd really appreciate it if you'd follow us on social media. You can do that at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, and dare I say most importantly, please give us a shout and check us out over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest movie news and reviews from the world of TV, film, and, well, anything else we can think of, because we love talking about the moving image. That's kind of how we roll, and we would love it if you would roll along with us. On this episode, we got an interesting one. We're in festival season, even though none of us are going anywhere for festivals. Festivals are still going on, and the Cinequest Festival is on as we speak from March 20th through the 30th down in the States, and we are looking at a really interesting and sort of emotional debut feature called Icon, which basically is the story of a teenage pregnancy. A young man and a woman, get together. Sam, who played by Parker Padgett, he's in the prime of his life. He's a senior, he's carefree, and he's got his new girlfriend, Anna, played by Devin Hales. But when there's a pregnancy, a surprise one, Sam is forced to face the realities of adulthood, which we all have to do from time to time. But things really spiral out of control for him, and he tries to find his own truth, because his dad hasn't been in his life at all, and now he has to be one, and it's a real complicated time for this young man. But it is written, produced, and directed by one Tony Ahedo, and we got the distinct pleasure to sit down with Tony and his star Parker just about the making of the film and sort of the process therein, and they called it a period piece too. It's set 10 years ago, and they called it a period piece. It made me feel pretty old, but it was a good talk, and I certainly hope you enjoy it, because I know I did. All right. Well, I mean, first off, like, both of you, thanks for the time today, guys. I really do appreciate this.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I mean, walk me through, I guess, sort of the origin of the film, because, I mean, I was so struck just by the honesty. It didn't feel like we never got anything that was like felt storyline driven or manufactured. Like, these characters felt incredibly organic.
Yeah, so I started writing a short story in college that was based on the last time I saw my dad. It was a memory that this vivid memory that I had as a kid, of an arcade. So I blossomed into a short film, and after I made that short film, I kind of, was like, there's some other stuff that I want to kind of explore, in my childhood. And, that's kind of what you see here in the film. And yeah, so a lot of Sam's character is based off of, he goes through a lot of things that are inspired from real things, in my life.
No, I mean, it's one of those it's one of those stories that we can all relate to, because in many ways we've all had similar things happen in so many of our lives. And I'm curious, Parker, from your perspective, how is it for you to be able to read for something like this, where there's material there, like there's something you can really chew on and bite into?
Yeah, it's awesome. None of it felt, like you said, manufactured or put in there for the purpose of being in a movie or having something that we felt needed to be shown in there. It all was very organic. And as an actor, I definitely appreciated that. There was a real focus to tell a real story. And that's kind of how we treated it throughout all of production. And I had to make sure from an acting standpoint to not make it melodramatic or make it into something that it was not.
Right.
And with the rest of the cast help and with Tony's direction, I think we achieved that. So.
No, I mean, obviously this is independent film and you're not necessarily going to get a lot of time, but I'm curious, were the table reads, was there a lot of rehearsal time, or was it just sort of pick up and go and figure it out as you shoot?
So we did, there is never a lot of time in India. You're absolutely right. But we did a little bit of rehearsing. Parker and I would do a lot of talks about the character just to be on the same page. And, I knew when we got on set that, I was kind of going to have to hand over the character to him and he was going to have to just be Sam. And he did such a great job of taking that role and just making it his own and, really taking charge. So, I think we did 2 sets of rehearsals. We did one with Parker and Devin. We did all the Sam and Anna scenes, and then we did one with Parker and Julia. We did all the mom scenes, and everything else we kind of just had to do rehearsals the day of and kind of work like that. But, I wanted them to go through and do a bunch of things. And there's some scenes that we didn't rehearse at all because I wanted that natural reaction. I wanted the first time that they did something to be the first time that they did something.
For sure. Was there a lot of, was there room to play with it? Like, was there room for sort of improvisation on set? Because it definitely felt like, as much as the story is important and you were going through the narrative, it wasn't, there was that kinetic energy of maybe there's a little bit of improv here. Maybe there's a little bit of sort of spontaneity to it all.
Yeah. I love improv. So being a writer, on the film that you're directing is sometimes great because you have so much flexibility with the script to go, yeah, let's change that line. And I would work with Parker and the other actors and just kind of, when we would always rehearse the scene before we would shoot and just have that time to kind of workshop the scene. Just, is this how you guys say this? Is this how you would do this? And Parker sometimes would come up and say, I think Sam, might do this here. And that could be reference to blocking or say, can I change this word? And, Parker, you could probably talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to Tony's flexibility and his collaboration skills. There is a bit of improv in there, but I wouldn't say any that just came immediately out of the blue. If something were to be said during a take that wasn't initially in the script, we would go back and we would refine it. We would make it so that it continued to flow better, so that everything sounded natural. All the blocking was natural, and none of it seemed staged. As an actor, and I'm sure as a director for Tony, the goal is for it to not come across as if we're reading off of the script. And being able to have that flexibility definitely helped, and I think made for better dialogue all around. Just having some of that be organic and having it come from the perspective of the characters.
For sure. And I mean, something else about the film, which I think stood out for me, like that really resonated for me anyway, is that, I mean, it wasn't trying to be in a certain time period, and it felt like it had a very distinct sort of visual aesthetic. And I'm kind of curious from Tony, not only from your perspective, Tony, but for you, Parker, you're existing with these characters in a world that, at least from my perspective, almost didn't have a time frame to it. Is that sort of freeing, or is that sort of an extra challenge on top of it? Because I mean, I love how the movie kind of plays with just sort of the emotion of the moment, as opposed to sort of thinking out in more of a sort of straight arrow narrative kind of line.
Mm-hmm. So Icon is a period piece. It does take place in the 2010s. So some of the items that I confiscate from other people's cars and the like are iPods.
Right.
My own phone is not an iPhone. It is taking place, 10 years ago, around that time. I would say it was definitely very interesting to dive into that, because I was very young during the 2010s. Those were my formative years. So to kind of go back at the age of, I don't know what I was during production, 19 or 20, to go back into that and play an older character in the time in which I grew up, if that makes sense, was definitely interesting. And it was a lot of fun to kind of play around with that. And then you go back even further and watching the flashback scenes, I think Tony and Harrison, the DP, did such a fantastic job showing that time frame as well. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to play around with. And there were a lot of times where we would be on set and we have to realize, okay, wait, this did not exist yet. And we'd have to take it away and kind of be cognizant of that throughout production. But it was a lot of fun.
You've made me feel old. I don't think of the 2010s as a period piece.
Yeah, Tony and I, we would all joke about it during production.
Yeah,
too. It's crazy that was 10 years ago.
Nobody thinks of it as a period piece, but as we started developing it, it is. I mean, so David, like like you were saying, we didn't set a key, like it doesn't have a set year. We just knew the time period that we were trying to come across. So it's in the early 2010s, so that could be anywhere from 2008 to like 2012. That's probably the gap I would give. But it was important to just not have it be now, because now we live in such a different world now. Yeah. And things were different. And I think part of growing up also in the 90s, as a small boy, that was for a lot of the flashback sequence, there's just so much fun to go on. There's the outfits, there's just certain things you would do just in the 90s that are not kind of taken away necessarily by having like too much technology by you or things like that. So we didn't want to make the time period more than it needed to be.
No, for sure. Now I'm curious for both of you, like thinking back, can you sort of pinpoint maybe a moment in your life or even a movie that you saw in your younger years that you felt was like the pivot point that sort of inspired you to get into this business?
Yeah. So for me, very early on, it was Jurassic Park. I loved it as a kid. I think I'd watch it almost every night. And I just loved that magic and all that. So, I mean, it's very funny because Icon is a very real movie. Yeah. Where, it's not very different than Jurassic Park, but I think it just kind of intrigued me as a kid. And I just, what other medium could you bring, dinosaurs to life? And so there was something about it that just always stuck with me. And then, I just kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, for me, it was also a film not so grounded in reality. But when I saw Back to the Future, and I've watched it many, many times since the first time I've seen it, I knew I wanted to do something involving movies and involving film. I fell in love with Marty McFly, that character, and the whole world that was just kind of built within the screen I was watching it on. And from then on, I knew I wanted to be a part of something like that.
Now, and I mean, this will go for both of you, but I'm kind of curious because there is the old joke about actors who want to direct. I'm curious, Parker, after having done this film, is there any aspirations to maybe produce your own stuff and put that kind of stuff out there? And in the reverse of that, I'm kind of curious, Tony, in doing a feature, like what do you learn from the actors sort of in the process of making everything?
So for me, primarily my focus is on acting going forward. I believe that the best actors have some directing experience. And I also know that some of the best directors have a little bit of acting experience. So to understand that perspective, I think is really important, and you can put yourself in their shoes. So as a director, I know Tony's able to put himself in the actor's shoes, and that led to a lot of the positive collaboration that we had. So maybe very long in the distant future would be something that I would be interested in directing and producing. But my priority now is to really kick off my acting career and make the most of it.
Yeah. And as for me, I think if the question's reversed, I don't really have an interest in acting at all. I like being behind the camera. I did take acting classes to become a, so I know how to talk to actors, because I think it's very important for directors to be able to know who they're talking to, be able to understand what it's like to be in that position and do that. So I took a couple just, so I know what I'm doing. But yeah, I think I just have too much fun behind the camera. And like kind of going forward. But what was that the question, David? I'm sorry.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, because I mean, I'm always curious because, like, especially in this film, I could really feel that the lines of communication sort of between the director and the actors and the actors and the director was very much open, and it felt very, very sort of collaborative. And I mean, especially when making sort of a story like this, which has elements that are quite personal, it feels very important to have that sort of two-way street to be able to make something the right way.
Yeah, I think it's important, when you're directing something, and in this case, I was also, one of the producers on this film. Choosing an actor, you're choosing them to be that character. They're not just like some puppet that's going to show up and read lines. Like, you have to trust them that they're going to make good decisions about their character. So, while all in all, I'm thinking about everything involved with the movie. I'm thinking about the lighting. I'm thinking about, how certain shots need to be. I'm thinking about different characters. If the scene connects, Parker's only focusing on Sam. So he, in a sense, during production becomes closer to the character than even me.
Yeah.
And he's able to say, well, I did this in this last scene, does that kind of work if I do it again here? And I could say, yeah, that's great. I totally forgot that you were doing that, because I have a billion different scenes going on. And so that was really nice, just to kind of have somebody have your back like that, and have that flexibility. And I love working like that. I love being collaborative. I love having suggestions, and I generally know what I want, but show me something, and then maybe that's what I want. And that's kind of how it worked out on this set with Parker, Megan, Julia, anybody.
Now, I mean, okay, just to put a bow on this, and this is the silly question, but I'm curious, if there's a dream project for both of you, what is it?
Parker, why don't you go first?
A dream project. This is a little bit out there, I suppose. I'd like to be in a Jordan Peele horror movie, something along those lines.
Do it. Yeah, man. Why not?
Or either that or the superhero genre, I think would be really cool. A lot of times you'd be a good Spider-Man. And I've taken that to heart in a way. And I think that would be a lot of fun to play Spider-Man.
Well, your name is Parker. You're halfway there. So
exactly. I get Peter Parker all the time.
Yeah. As for me, I love horror. I love a bunch of different genres. I mean, I'm just kind of excited just to try different things. I think the way that technology is going, and shows like The Mandalorian, just shooting on like the effects wall, it's like it opens up so many different doors for things that weren't possible before. So, I mean, I really just, kind of love to jump into like a crazy sci-fi, like Blade Runner or something like on that scale, and just, take these real emotions and just put them in a setting like that.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, man. But just, and I mean, I just got to say congratulations again on this film, because I mean, I can feel the honesty and the earnestness in sort of both of you as we talk. And I really do think that it's important to sort of put stories like this out there, but just put them out there the right way, and put them out there in a very honest and very sort of I don't want to say emotional, but like very earnest kind of way. And that makes them sort of rise to the top and get noticed. And I think you guys have done that with this film. And I just want to say congratulations again. Thank you for the time, and good luck on the festival run.
Cool. Thanks so much, David. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, David. Have a good day.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. You can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.